Hey guys, Creaty here. Welcome to episode 3 of my 100th Macy's Parade prediction series. In this episode, I'll be talking about something that has been very controversial in recent years, and I'm talking about NBC's telecast of the Macy's Parade. Since 2022, I've noticed that NBC's coverage of the Macy's Parade has been going downhill in recent years for multiple reasons, which has led to numerous negative online reviews. One person called the 2025 coverage a torture session, another viewed it as an ad marathon. Some people have even gone online to say that the entire NBC crew behind the parade should lose their jobs, and I think we can all agree that that is too far. So, I made this video to suggest ways that Macy's and NBC could change their coverage of the parade to make it better and give it a more positive reception from viewers. I'll be giving my own criticisms and thoughts in my personal opinion, of course, while keeping them as civil as possible, because I want to be respectful when sharing my thoughts. I'm not trying to hate on Macy's or NBC. I'm a true Macy's Parade fan, and I believe that all of the changes that I will talk about could make the parade coverage so much better and well received from viewers. Now listen, I'm no videography expert, and I have no experience in professional TV broadcasting, but I've seen lots of older Macy's Parade telecasts from the 80s to the 2010s, which all did a much better job of presenting the parade compared to the 2020s, and by watching those broadcasts and comparing them to the broadcasts of today, it's easy for me to spot the differences and compare how certain elements of the parade are being shown on TV. I grew up watching the 2010s Macy's parades, and even they feel different compared to the parades of today. With that out of the way, let's get into what I think Macy's and NBC should do to fix all of the problems that have caused the recent telecasts to fail in recent years. My first suggestion that I'm gonna make is something that I've noticed for years. They never show the names of the balloons or floats. I think this is very strange because they do this with the performers, but not with the balloons or floats. I think it's time they finally change this and list the names of the balloons and floats on the telecasts, just like they do with the performers and bands. I'll put a few examples that I made myself on screen to show you what I mean. It's very odd that NBC never does this with the balloons. The broadcasters of the Toronto Santa Claus Parade have been doing this with their floats for years, even to this day. If someone's TV doesn't have sound, listing the names of the balloons and floats can help out a lot. It can help the viewers learn about the name of a character they've never heard of, or give them an idea of what is happening on a float that is too confusing for them to understand. The Macy's Parade has a few niche character balloons that the average viewer wouldn't know, like Nora from the Elf on the Shelf Santaverse, or Luffy from One Piece, and listing their names on the telecast is a good way of helping the viewers understand who they are quicker, rather than getting the viewers to Google the characters themselves. This would be a really good change to the coverage, and it would fix a major issue that I've noticed for years. Next is something that everyone has a problem with regarding the parade coverage, and that is that the parade needs to be shown more. Everyone thinks that the parade itself isn't being shown enough, and I have many different solutions that Macy's and NBC could do to show more of the parade. One idea I have is split screens during performances, with one screen showing the Herald Square performances, and another showing other parts of the parade from a different vantage point. They could try this method throughout the first hour of the telecast, which is when they would be showing the Broadway acts, and it would also work during celebrity performances. For example, on one screen, they could be showing a Broadway performance, and on another screen, they could be showing the Bluey balloon on Central Park West, with both screens being on screen at the same time. While it would be a bit overstimulating, it would help keep viewers with short attention spans, including kids, interested in the parade, because we're living in a different world now compared to back then. When I was a kid, I could handle waiting for something to happen, but these days, kids' attention spans have been reduced, and they have a hard time waiting because they're used to watching everything start right away, and that's because these kids are growing up with short-form content platforms like TikTok, streaming services, and social media. Showing the parade from different vantage points on a separate screen would give kids an idea of where certain units are and how long it will take for them to get to Herald Square. There are multiple different ways they could do this. One of those being two screens with the screen showing the parade constantly changing vantage points, or they could be like NFL Red Zone and show a quad box with one screen showing the live Herald Square performances and the other three screens showing three constantly changing views of different parade elements. While this would result in sensory overload, it would still keep the average viewer from waiting to see a certain element like a balloon or a float. While they would still have to wait for their favorite character to reach Herald Square, they won't have to wait to see that character on TV, because at one point, they could be on Central Park West on one screen, and a couple minutes later they could be at Columbus Circle on another screen. Both kids and matured viewers that also have short attention spans are used to this format, and using it during the coverage would keep them engaged, and it would keep them from waiting a long time to see their favorite balloon. Another thing they could do to give the parade more screen time is have a street-level correspondent watching the parade pass by their vantage point while commentating on all of the balloons and floats that are passing by them. They used to do this in the 70s and 80s with the role of Uptown hosts, who would commentate on the parade from Uptown on Central Park West. Examples of past Uptown hosts include Ed McMahon, Bryant Gumbel, and Sarah Purcell, and all of them gave their own unscripted commentary as the floats and balloons passed by their vantage point. And while Uptown hosts are still a thing in the telecast to this day, since the 90s, they don't give commentary on the parade elements anymore and instead do celebrity interviews. I think we should go back to having them commentate on the parade. And there doesn't have to be just one. They could have one on Central Park West, one on Columbus Circle, and one on 6th Avenue, and all of them could commentate on the units passing by them, and they could also talk to spectators and engage with them. The Toronto Santa Claus Parade has had a long history with street correspondents that interact with the spectators. One of the best examples is Sandy Hoyt, who was a street correspondent from Global's first year of covering the parade in 1985 up until 1993, before he became a main host the following year. He would always talk to the young children watching the parade and ask them about the floats passing by. His interactions with the children watching the parade were always fun, and to the kids, Sandy's interactions with them made the parade experience more engaging. In the Macy's parade, the Uptown hosts or correspondents never talk to the spectators. Instead, they're always talking to celebrities or NBC stars. I already mentioned the Santa Claus Parade, who has had a long history with street correspondents, but you know who else used to have street-level correspondents that would always talk to the spectators? CBS! That's right, NBC's main parade coverage competitors from the 50s up until 2023 would always have someone talking to the spectators during their parade coverage. After the final CBS All-American Thanksgiving Parade, CBS focused on the Macy's Parade as the only parade in their coverage. And because they weren't the official broadcasters of the parade, and they couldn't use the parade's name in their coverage, they named their event the Thanksgiving Parade on CBS. And during CBS's time covering the Macy's Parade on the Thanksgiving Parade on CBS, they would always have a street-level correspondent talking to spectators and interviewing people that came to watch the parade live. Their street correspondents added to the parade experience for the families that came to watch the parade, and they made the experience more fun, especially knowing that after the parade ended, they would go back home and watch themselves being interviewed live on CBS. Why doesn't NBC do this with their correspondents? Having someone that engages with the crowds and talk to families would make the broadcast experience more exciting, and it would also show to viewers watching from home how much people enjoy watching the parade live. I have a few fun ideas in mind for people that I think would make great correspondents that engage with the crowd and provide their own commentary on the parade from their vantage points, and I'm going to talk about them in my next suggestion. The modern parades aren't as entertaining for the kids as they used to be. There isn't enough segments that would keep today's generation of children engaged in the parade coverage. This parade needs more segments that would keep the kids engaged, because other than the balloons and floats themed to characters and properties that they know and love, most of the parade coverage isn't targeting the young audience it was made for. The parade needs correspondents that kids would know, and I think the perfect person for this job would be Blippi. Blippi is a kids YouTuber that makes educational videos targeted at preschoolers and young children. Lots of young children know who this guy is. I can picture him on 6th Avenue or Central Park South commentating on the parade units passing by while staying in character. He could talk about the balloons and floats in his cheerful and energetic tone while talking to the kids about the parade. Making the hosts and correspondents children's entertainers is another thing that the Toronto Santa Claus Parade excelled at in the 60s and 70s, back when it was run by Eaton's. The best example of this is British-Canadian children's television star Uncle Bobby. He was a master at entertaining the crowds on the parade route. He engaged with the children, talked to families, and he even talked to participants marching in the parade like Blinky the Talking Police Car. He was fun and entertaining, and he kept everyone engaged in the parade. If Blippi was in the parade, he could do something similar, but if it doesn't work, Blippi could be a pre-parade act instead, and his pre-parade act could be similar to the Barney pre-parade act from 1994. Blippi would definitely keep the young children and preschoolers engaged in the parade if he was a correspondent, but if Macy's doesn't want to treat the viewers like toddlers, they could instead make the correspondent a popular social media influencer. You know, like the one from Candy Cane Lane.
Welcome! Coming live from Prism Cable, you dig? Your boy Josh the Boss hanging with Santa Claus. You know what time it is. Ain't nobody coming to play? Oh yeah, Lane. Hey, KJ, G-Berry, I told y'all when you're new to the team. Make sure y'all hit that like and subscribe button, because I don't know how long I'm going to have this job. Is this going to be on Roku cable?
On a side note, if you've never heard of Candy Cane Lane, it's probably because you didn't watch the 2023 Santa Claus Parade. Thanks to the Santa Claus Parade, I found out about this movie, I watched it, and now it's my favorite Christmas movie of all time. I highly recommend you guys watch it too. Kids love social media influencers, and for me, I think the one that would be perfect for the job of a parade reporter would be iShowSpeed.
My mom is kind of homeless.
Just think about it. Speed is perfect for this job. He's the biggest influencer and live streamer in the world. He's so unpredictable, you never know what will happen in his unscripted live streams next. I think Speed would make a lot of sense to be a correspondent commentating on the parade from the street level, because he's great at keeping his viewers engaged. And unlike Blippi, who is only enjoyed by preschoolers, Speed's live streams are enjoyed by people of all ages. There's lots of kids that look up to Speed and want to be streamers just like him. Speed is known for his high energy, and he would do a great job at commentating on an event like the Macy's Parade while being entertaining, but not in a way that would irritate viewers. And since Speed is a big celebrity, they would have to have lots of security around him in case his crazy fans find him and start bothering him. He would also be great at talking to the spectators about the parade, because when he's not raging at video games or getting brutally attacked by his fans, Speed's pretty chill most of the time. He would also have a fun time watching all of the balloons and floats pass by, especially Luffy from One Piece, who is Speed's favorite character. And of course, he would also be live streaming during the parade, because of course he's gotta do a stream at the parade too. I think Speed would be perfect for the parade. He's amazing at entertaining his fans, and I bet he would do a great job entertaining the parade viewers too. If they can't get Speed to come to the parade, Drewski is a great honorable mention. He's just as entertaining, and he would make a great correspondent too. The next change that could help improve the telecast is also related to the balloons. Last year and the year before, they did this thing where they would show some of the balloons from different vantage points in the lineup, but they didn't do this with every balloon. They only did this with 8 balloons, which were Mario, SpongeBob, Spider-Man, Pac-Man, Buzz Lightyear, Shrek's Onion Carriage, the Pillsbury Doughboy, and Minnie Mouse. I think it's a little unfair that they only did this for a few balloons in 2025 and not all of them. If they're going to start doing this with the balloons, I think they might as well do this with all of the balloons. Why not show all of the balloons on Central Park West and 6th Avenue instead of just a few? Doing this would mean all of the giants would get the same treatment, and viewers wouldn't think that some balloons are more important than others. Either this, or just showing other angles of the balloons on different cameras in the quad box would both work. Lots of people online are saying that they don't like the amount of screen time that the hosts have been getting in recent years. Many people agree that the hosts are getting too much screen time and that the parade is supposed to be about the parade rather than the hosts. People complained online about NBC showing the hosts talking about the floats rather than showing the floats themselves. They also don't like how they keep cutting to the hosts during performances and in various parts of the broadcast where they're supposed to be showing a certain unit, like a float or a marching band. I also think they're distracting from the parade, which is supposed to be the main event, but the hosts are constantly trying to steal the spotlight. These days, the hosts are overacting and delivering exaggerated and over-emotional performances, making them feel less like traditional parade hosts and more like narcissistic ones. They're trying to make the event all about them and not the parade. Back in the days, the hosts used to get a lot less screen time, and they weren't trying to be the stars of the show. Katie Couric and Willard Scott were masters at this. They provided stellar commentary while also being fun and entertaining, but not in an irritating manner. They weren't trying to hog the spotlight away from the parade itself, and they were great hosts overall. They were a perfect example of good hosts. Maybe NBC could realize this and try to find ways to make the current hosts less annoying and attention-grabbing. They could still have fun, just not in a way that would annoy the viewers watching from home, and they could also be given less screen time, which would make them less distracting, and it would also mean that the viewers could see more of the parade, which is what the event is supposed to be all about. I would suggest not showing the hosts at all when they are talking about the floats, and not showing them during performances either, because that's how it always used to be before 2022. Giving the hosts less screen time and making them act like traditional hosts would significantly improve the viewer experience. While we're on the topic of distractions, another thing that I would remove is celebrity cameos at the 34th Street grandstands because they are just as distracting. I knew this was an issue when they kept cutting to Flavor Flav countless times in the 2022 telecast. Now it's happening a lot more and with even more celebrities. In 2025, we saw Bowen Yang, Queen Latifah, and Jessica Chastain at the grandstands. This is getting very annoying. It feels like Macy's is trying to make the celebrities the stars of the show and relying on them to get people to watch the parade rather than the balloons and floats. And this is especially evident with the celebrity cameos at the grandstands. It feels like I'm watching the Oscars with all these celebrity cutaways and cameos. When Flavor Flav started this trend in 2022, I knew it would keep getting worse and more annoying. There would be a lot less distractions if celebrity cameos on 34th Street were to be removed, and I don't think Macy's should rely on celebrities to distract viewers from the parade or to be viewed as more important than the balloons. I would suggest putting these celebrities on the floats instead, so that way they tie into the parade. And by floats, I mean the smaller floats, like the Haribo float, or the rocking toy floats, like the rocking horse, the rocking giraffe, and the rocking moose. One idea that I have for the 2026 parade is bringing back the rocket car that was used in the parade in the late 80s and throughout the 90s, and filling it with NBC stars like Reba McEntire, Tracy Morgan, Bowen Yang, the current stars of Days of Our Lives, and even Andy Cohen. That would work, because if they are on a smaller float or unit, they would still be part of the parade itself rather than making cameos at the grandstands. Another thing related to the overexposure of celebrities in the Macy's Parade telecast that bothers me are the excruciatingly long interviews. And by that, I mean the ones in the middle of the parade, like the ones with Andy Cohen, the one with Cynthia Erivo, the one with Hallmark movie stars, those ones. I'm getting tired of seeing them because they waste so much time in the coverage, because the hosts take forever when interviewing these celebrities. And when the hosts take a very long time talking to these celebrities, it also means the parade keeps getting less screen time. I would suggest removing these mid-parade interviews and instead get the celebrities to ride on smaller floats, so that way they tie into the parade and time is not being wasted. It's the same deal as the 34th Street grandstand celebrity cameos. I would also suggest doing the interviews on the Today Show instead, because that is a more appropriate time to do an interview with a celebrity rather than in the middle of the parade. One thing that has especially become very problematic for viewers in recent years is the performances, especially the special performances. Back in my days, singers used to just ride on floats, perform one of their songs for about 2 minutes or less, and just stand on the floats while Macy's employees dressed in costumes would vibe to the music. Since 2022, everything has changed. Now, every performance is a grand Grammys level number with lots of backup dancers, the artists are now more extra than ever, and the performances last over 3 minutes or in some cases even longer. This sudden change in tone for these performances is one of the reasons why I can't enjoy the telecast anymore. They take up too much time, and they're making the parade feel less like a parade and more like a concert on wheels, especially with all the backup dancers. These performances are also one of the many things that is causing the parade to constantly jam, stop, or slow down. It feels like Macy's is trying to make the performances the most important elements of the parade, just like the celebrities. It was never like this until 2020. One thing that I would suggest to Macy's is that if they want to keep these types of performances in the parade, please don't make them the main focus of the parade. Lots of people don't like the performances that much because they take up too much time and they don't like that they're being treated like the main focus of the parade when it should be the balloons, and I agree. In fact, lots of people don't even pay attention to the performances or don't care about them that much. I would suggest not treating them like the main elements of the parade, not over promoting them, making them shorter so the parade moves faster, and going back to when they used to be traditional pre-2022 performances. Though, if Macy's still wants to include the backup dancers, I would suggest having less backup dancer groups, because they've been getting annoying lately, and I'm starting to get tired of seeing every guest star have backup dancers performing with them. It was never like this until the 2020s. I hope at least half, or more than half, of the performances will go back to feeling like traditional pre-2022 performances. The 2021 parade only had a couple backup dancer groups, and I think Macy's should go back to that. There is one type of performance that I think should be removed altogether, and that is the special performances, which Macy's has been doing since, you guessed it, 2022. But 2022 wasn't the first year of these types of performances. It started back in the late 2010s and early 2020s, when artists like Gwen Stefani, Kelly Clarkson, Celine Dion, and Carrie Underwood would perform on a big stage at Rockefeller Center. These were pre-parade acts, which was a good move by Macy's, but in my opinion they still felt unnecessary, and they would have been better fits for Christmas in Rockefeller Center, especially because they were pre-recorded at Rockefeller Center. Then in 2020, they started doing what I refer to as the special performance prototypes. Macy's did 3 of these in 2020, with the 3 performances being Jimmy Fallon and the Roots, Patti LaBelle, and Dolly Parton. Though the Dolly Parton performance wasn't at Herald Square, it was actually pre-recorded at an undisclosed studio in Nashville, and this was the exact same performance that CTV showed in their coverage of the 2020 Toronto Santa Claus Parade. I believe these 3 performances were prototype versions of the special performances that we see today. However, unlike the special performances we see today, these ones still worked because 2020 was the year of the pandemic and the entire parade was pre-recorded rather than live. Then, in 2022, Macy's officially started doing special performances with the first ever special performance featuring Mariah Carey. This was a last-minute announcement from Macy's. I didn't know about it at all until I watched the parade live on NBC. I knew from the start that it would be a problem. Everyone was talking about Mariah's performance the whole time. The hosts were yapping about her throughout the entire duration of the telecast, obsessing over her non-stop like NFL commentators glazing Patrick Mahomes.
That was a heck of a play by Mahomes.
And it was getting very annoying quickly. Don't get me wrong, I love Mariah Carey. I love her music, and I think she's an amazing vocalist. But this is too much. This is exactly what the CTV host did with Dolly Parton in the 2020 Santa Claus Parade. The performance itself was at the very end of the telecast, where Mariah would sing All I Want for Christmas Is You as the last act before Santa's arrival, and I didn't like the performance that much. Mariah barely did anything during the performance. All she really did was stand still. There were too many backup dancers. She took the spotlight away from Santa, and because of the performance, there wasn't any room for Santa's float to stop in front of Macy's department store. I love Mariah Carey, but I think this was a bad idea. She should have done this on Christmas in Rockefeller Center instead, and they also should have let one of the marching bands welcome Santa to Herald Square, just like they always used to do before 2022. Then, Macy's kept expanding the number of special performances each year as the years went on. The 2023 parade featured another special performance, this time featuring Cher, and to me it was just as bad as the Mariah Carey one. Another thing they started doing in 2023 was make the opening number a special performance and have the artist performing in the opening special performance cut the ribbon instead of Macy's officials. In 2023, Jon Batiste ran through the ribbon. In 2024, Alison Brie as the Macy's gift guide cut the ribbon. And in 2025, Cynthia Erivo cut the ribbon. I thought this was a little unfair, because before 2023, Macy's officials would always have the honors of cutting the ribbon, with Al Roker always helping out. Again, it feels like Macy's is trying to make the celebrities and performers more important than their own officials. I really hope they change this in 2026. For the 2026 parade, I'm hoping they will finally go back to the traditional live ribbon cutting ceremonies with Al Roker on Central Park West, with executive producer Will Koss, production director Kathleen Wright, and Macy's CEO Tony Spring. They are the ones that are running the show, and they deserve to be the ones that should cut the ribbon. I also hope they make the ribbon cutting live again, because since 2023 the ribbon cutting has always been pre-recorded and part of the special performances, and it's also delaying the official kickoff time for the parade, so I hope they make the ribbon cutting live again, and making the parade go back to starting right on time, just like it always used to be before 2022. Man, I've been saying that a lot throughout this video. Back to the special performances, 2024 was when the special performances really started to get out of hand. The first one was a pre-recorded opening number with Billy Porter. I thought it was alright. Jennifer Hudson was pretty good too. Hers was my favorite of the year, even if I still think she should have ridden on float and they should have let the West Virginia Marching Band welcome Santa to Herald Square instead. The one that bothered me the most, though, was Kylie Minogue's performance. I remember watching it live and hating it so much. Nothing against Kylie herself, of course. I just hated the idea of having extra long mid-parade performances that aren't part of the parade itself. The whole time I was crashing out, waiting for it to finally end. I felt like Benson from Regular Show during this part of the broadcast. I thought it would never end, because it took up 4 minutes, wasting so much time in the coverage, though it felt like the performance lasted over 5 minutes. I think Kylie shouldn't have done this performance in the middle of the Macy's parade, and instead performed it on Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve, which would have been a much better fit for this performance. And throughout the entirety of the performance, I felt like I was watching New Year's Rockin' Eve instead of the parade. Then came 2025, and this was when things kept getting worse. Now there were more special performances than ever. There were 5, and I did not enjoy a single one of them. Again, nothing against the artists themselves. I just think that including these time-wasting long performances that aren't part of the parade are one of the reasons why the parade has been getting worse since 2020, and they're also why I haven't been enjoying the telecast since 2020. First was Cynthia Erivo, who performed in the pre-recorded opening number. I thought it was boring. Next was Conan Gray, another performance that would have been a perfect fit for New Year's Rockin' Eve. I like Vodka Cranberry, but I think Conan should have saved this performance for the iHeartRadio Jingle Ball. Next was the K-pop Demon Hunters performance. At first, I thought they would perform on the Labubu float, which didn't have a guest star on it. But no, it was just another special performance. Also, early in the first hour of the broadcast, Ken Jeong, who voiced Bobby in the movie, was talking about the performance coming up next early on in the coverage, but the performance wouldn't happen until the third quarter of the parade.
Stop the cap! Stop the cap right now! Stop the cap!
He said, "My girls are coming up next!" But they wouldn't be coming up next until after the Haribo float, the Alcorn State Marching Band, and that one mid-parade Starbucks ad with Savannah Guthrie. I'll get into that later when talking about the commercials. Then the performance happened, and while they sounded great as always, I was disappointed. I think they should have performed on the Labubu float. It would have been a much better stage for the performance, and it also would have made the performance part of the parade itself. Next, I don't know if this counts as a special performance or not, but I also think Taylor Momsen should have performed on a float. At least she rode on the rocking horse. The last special performance was once again at the end of the parade, and it featured country singer Lainey Wilson. I like her music, but I didn't enjoy her performance that much. Mainly because she wasn't on a float, but also because I didn't enjoy the performance in general. She was on a float in the Rose Parade. Why can't she ride on a float in the Macy's Parade too? I think they should have let the NYPD marching band herald Santa's arrival instead. Speaking of Santa, the special performances are also causing Santa's arrival to feel rushed. Because they're taking up so much time in the coverage, the grand finale with Santa's arrival is always rushed. And they always start showing him right when the credits start rolling. That's how much damage special performances are doing to the parade, and if this continues, things will keep getting worse as the years go on. If they continue with the special performances, every performance would be a special performance, and all of the artists would only be at Herald Square and not riding on floats, and the floats would just pass through Herald Square like the balloons with nobody on them because all of the guest stars are doing special performances. Then, the parade wouldn't even be the main focus of the telecast anymore, and the parade would be completely removed from the name of the event, which would most likely be renamed to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Celebration Concert presented by NBC Universal, which is exactly what Disney is doing with their annual televised Christmas Day parade. And Macy's and NBC could be copying Disney and ABC if things keep getting worse. Ever since 2022, I've always disliked the idea of having special performances in the middle of the Macy's parade. They waste so much time in the telecast, and they would be so much better if they were shorter, they weren't over-promoted or treated like the main element of the parade, and the artists either performed on floats or saved their performances for another televised concert event like Christmas in Rockefeller Center or Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve. I really hope Macy's puts an end to the special performances. I understand they're trying to attract more viewers, but the special performances have done so much damage to the event and are causing people to not watch it anymore. I wish they would go back to having all of the artists on floats. I think even the biggest artists should still ride on floats, rather than only being at Herald Square. I hope Macy's realizes this and puts an end to the special performances altogether, because removing them would mean less time would be wasted, the parade would move faster, and viewers would be more satisfied with the coverage. Now let's talk about another thing that has become very problematic for viewers in recent years. The commercials. There's a lot of changes that I think should be made to the commercials, because just like the performances, especially the special performances, the commercials are also causing lots of problems for the parade. In the past 4 years, lots of viewers complained about the number of commercials that were shown during the parade. Many thought that they showed more of the commercials than the parade. The telecast has seen an increase in commercials over the past couple years, and because there's so many commercials now, it's causing the parade to slow down rapidly. The obvious thing to do would be to decrease the number of commercials so that way people can see more of the parade. With less commercials, there would be less complaining from viewers. It would also help the parade move a lot faster. Going back to the traditional commercial breaks, like the ones from the 2010s and earlier decades, would keep the parade moving at a normal pace, rather than constantly causing the parade to jam when it reaches 6th Avenue. I especially noticed it happening a lot when I watched my friend Liam's videos of the 2025 parade, particularly when the second half of the parade was passing by him. Most of the time in his videos, the parade would constantly be halted. It wasn't because of people crossing the street. It wasn't because of protests unlike the previous 2 years. There were 3 main reasons why the parade kept stopping in 2025. Number 1, special performances. Number 2, celebrity interviews. And number 3, the number of commercials increasing. All 3 of these things are slowing the parade down and constantly causing it to jam. So much so that all of the marching bands got bored and had to stop playing after 10 minutes of just standing still.
One eternity later.
Boring!
Get on with it.
Yes, get on with it!
One of the floats was sitting in front of Liam for over 8 minutes. If I were to guess the exact number of minutes it was sitting in front of Liam, I would probably say 10 minutes. If I was in this crowd and I had to sit through over 15 minutes of the parade not moving, I don't think I could take it. I'd already be packing everything up and heading home, backing out of the crowds faster than the Ravens backed out of the Max Crosby trade. And my attention span for things like music and movies isn't even that short. All of the kids watching the parade wouldn't survive these long pauses either. They're already going to be asking their parents for their iPads after 5 minutes. If the 100th parade's going to have even more long pauses that take even longer, parents, you might want to bring your kids iPads just in case. Because this is one of the only instances where kids should be looking at their iPads during a fun family event like the Macy's parade. When everyone else is watching special performances, they'll be watching their Cocomelon and Paw Patrol. Or whatever kids watch on YouTube these days, if we're talking about the kids that don't know what a cartoon is.
Hey, what's your favorite cartoon?
YouTube. I watch YouTube.
No, cartoon.
Cartoon?
Mm-hmm. You don't watch cartoons?
What are cartoons?
Damn, what? I'm not that old.
Is it like when they have ads?
What?
Just like the special performances, the commercials are also doing lots of damage to the Macy's parade. And if the commercials stay the way that they are right now, things could keep getting worse and worse as the years go on. I really hope this problem gets fixed by making the commercial breaks shorter and showing less of them. Another thing that NBC could do is not show extended commercials. These ones take up the most time and space in commercial breaks, and they're one of the things that slows the pace of the parade down. Televised sporting events always show quick commercial breaks, and while the Macy's parade isn't a sporting event, it could definitely benefit from quicker commercial breaks. Making the commercial breaks quicker would be a great change, and the removal of extended commercials could also keep the commercial breaks from slowing everything down. In addition to extended commercials, mid-parade commercials are also very unnecessary. Remember the Starbucks ad that played right after the Alcorn State University Marching Band's performance? It would make so much more sense to put that in a commercial break rather than in the middle of the parade. In fact, the Starbucks ad could not even be there at all, and there wouldn't be a difference. Hopefully they stop with the mid-parade ads, because that's what the commercial breaks are for. Another example of both mid-parade commercials and extended commercials are the Universal trailers and previews that are always advertising a new or upcoming Universal project. I'm also tired of these ads. We first saw these in 2023 with the Beyoncé concert movie trailer. Don't get me wrong, I love Beyoncé. I love her music, and I think she's a talented singer. But this was completely pointless. This trailer served zero purpose in the parade. It had nothing to do with the parade itself, yet it was being hyped up by the hosts as a big moment. All it was just Beyonce saying, "Hey everyone, it's Beyonce, happy Thanksgiving, here's a trailer for my new concert movie, watch it now," followed by a minute-long trailer for the movie, which had nothing to do with the parade. Beyonce, I love you, but if you're gonna advertise your new movie, please don't do it in the middle of an event that isn't promoting it. Then Universal started doing this with their movies, starting in 2024 with not one, but 2 Wicked trailers. And if you remember, Universal was promoting the Wicked movie like crazy. They were throwing it everywhere, including the Macy's Parade telecast. It started with an excruciatingly long interview between the host and Cynthia Erivo that kept dragging on like The Simpsons, followed by what the host described as an incredible trailer for the new Wicked movie that you won't want to miss, and it was just an average extended Wicked trailer. The hosts were also making us sit through an even longer commercial about the movie and how Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo got the main roles, which was made by Xfinity. It would have made so much more sense to show that in a program about the movie and not during a completely unrelated event. If Universal was gonna advertise the Wicked movie in the Macy's Parade, they could have instead sponsored a float or balloon promoting it, so that way it would have tied into the parade. They could have made an Elphaba balloon, they could have made a Shiz University float, but no, they instead decided to show an extended trailer and an even longer behind-the-scenes short film commercial hybrid instead. And then they did the same thing in 2025 with Wicked for Good, which was the second part of the film. Only this time, they showed another Xfinity commercial with Jeff Goldblum that was advertising the movie. NBC and Universal, please stop with the extended trailers and previews. They waste so much time in the broadcasts, and they aren't even related to the parade at all. If you're gonna show trailers for your new movies, like the upcoming movie Focker-in-Law, starring Robert De Niro, Ben Stiller, and, coincidentally enough, Ariana Grande, that's what the regular commercial breaks are for. You could also sponsor units promoting those movies, or have the stars of the movies ride on an already existing float. I mean, the 2025 Rose Parade featured a Wicked float, and this float would have looked just like what a Wicked float would have looked like if the Macy's Parade featured one. It's like the Tournament of Roses noticed that Universal wasn't promoting their movie properly in the Macy's Parade, and were like, fine, we'll do it ourselves. If Macy's won't make a Wicked float, we'll just do it instead. I would also suggest that the hosts should stop asking the viewers to take a look at the commercials, because every time they do that, it makes me feel like I'm watching a Nintendo Direct.
Next, please take a look at this.
While we're on the topic of big commercials, we need to talk about the Macy's Parade commercial breaks becoming Super Bowl commercial breaks all of a sudden, because now it seems like big corporations are trying to go all out with advertising during the parade because it's seen by billions of people. This is just like the TKO era of the WWE. There's a commercial everywhere you look. There's commercials in the ring. There's commercials on the tables. There's commercials in the commercial breaks. Commercials everywhere. And the same thing is happening with the Macy's Parade. The only time this works is during the Super Bowl. And this is not the Super Bowl. This is the Macy's Parade. And while the parade is of course fun to watch, the commercials are massive distractions because now they're on the same level as Super Bowl commercials. Back then, the commercial breaks used to be regular commercial breaks, even in the 2010s. But now everybody's trying to make the Macy's Parade the new Super Bowl, and I don't know how to feel about it. So I would suggest going back to the regular commercial breaks and saving all the big, grand advertisements for the Super Bowl. The last commercial-related thing I'm going to talk about is the thing about the commercials that bugs me the most. In 2024, they cut off 2 high school marching band performances in favor of more commercials. I think this is very disrespectful to the marching bands, because they worked extra hard to be in the parade. They also paid to be in the parade, and they didn't deserve to be cut off in the middle of their performances. I was especially sad when the Avon High School Marching Band's performance was cut off. They were the band I was the most excited about, but NBC did them dirty, not only by cutting them off halfway through their performance, but also by getting the location of their school wrong.
Yukon Cornelius, the Wet Bandits, Leg Lamps, classic bits of holiday movies, the Avon Marching Black and Gold Band from Plainfield, Indiana.
Oh my God, bro.
Keep in mind that Avon won the Grand Nationals in 2024. One of the best high school bands in the country was disrespected on national television. Hopefully someone has footage of their full performance, and Lincoln's too, because they were also disrespected by NBC. Now I'm worried that over the next few years, we're not going to see any marching band performances in the parade because of the amount of commercials that Macy's and NBC have been showing. I'm worried that every band will be cut off mid-performance, and every marching band performance will end up like this.
A New York classic. Let's listen to The Lullaby at Broadway as performed by the Ohio State University Marching Band.
Whopper, 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 Junior, Double, Triple, Whopper, Flame Grill taste with perfect toppers. I rule this day. Lettuce, mayo, pickle, ketchup, it's okay if I don't want that Impossible or bacon Whopper, any Whopper my way. You rule your season today at BK, have it your way.
Well, you can feel the excitement building right here. Welcome back to the parade.
Can you imagine the Ohio State University Marching Band, one of the greatest marching bands of all time, losing screen time to a Burger King ad? This is exactly what 6ABC Philadelphia does all the time with the bands in the Philadelphia Thanksgiving Parade. If Macy's and NBC start doing this with all of the bands in the Macy's Parade, I'm going to be very disappointed. The marching bands are one of my favorite parts about the Macy's Parade, and to see them being disrespected like this is downright awful. These kids worked so hard to make their dreams a reality, only for NBC to show 10 to 20 seconds of their performance before cutting to commercials. NBC never did this before 2024. I think this disrespect has to come to an end. NBC, please stop cutting off the marching bands and show their full performances, because these kids worked so hard to be in the spotlight. Staying on the topic of marching bands, another thing that I really hope Macy's brings back is the Santa Band tradition. I know this video is specifically about the telecast side of the parade, but generally speaking, I miss seeing a marching band play before Santa's arrival and welcome him to Herald Square. Just like how it always used to be in the good old days before the tradition was killed in 2022. I really hope they bring this tradition back for the 100th parade, because it's always better when a marching band is in front of Santa. In parades, it makes more sense to have marching bands herald Santa's arrival rather than performances. So Macy's, if you're listening, please bring back the Santa Band tradition. It's been 5 years since the last time we saw a marching band perform before Santa, and I hope this tradition gets brought back. On a similar note, other things that I hope Macy's brings back for the 100th parade and future parades include the Blue Sky Gallery, the Bob Hope Band Scholarship Award, the Macy's Holiday Ambassador Campaign, and anything else that we haven't seen in a Macy's parade since before 2022. Next, this probably won't happen, but I would like to see Macy's bring back the Milton Deluxe soundtrack, because, in my opinion, his original parade soundtrack is better than Ray Chu's. No offense to Ray Chu, of course. He's got some good songs, but I'm not that fond of most of them. Playing Milton Deluxe music on the telecast would be a great way of honoring him and his legacy with the parade. He composed so many parade classics, like Jolly Charlie and Hokey Pokey, alongside many others. I also like his background music tracks for the balloons a lot more than Ray Chu's. Again, no offense to Ray, I just think that Milton DeLugg's background music fit the balloons a lot better. There were so many good tracks that I would love to see Macy's bring back for the 100th parade, like the 2010 Diary of a Wimpy Kid theme for Greg Heffley, though the 2021 Diary of a Wimpy Kid theme would also work a lot better than his current background music track, which I also mentioned in my video where I predicted the returning balloon lineup. I would also like to see Macy's bring back the fun song for SpongeBob, the Pokemon anime theme song for Pikachu and Eevee, Infinity and Beyond from the Toy Story score for Buzz Lightyear, which is a lot more fitting for the character than an instrumental version of the original recording of You've Got a Friend in Me. Infinity and Beyond suits Buzz's character a lot more, especially with the pose that the balloon is in. There's also the Linus and Lucy marching band arrangement for Snoopy, the original 1987 Spider-Man arrangement for Spider-Man, the Virtual Sonic version of the Sonic Spinball theme for a potential new Sonic balloon if it happens, the Calypso version of the Sesame Street theme song for the Sesame Street float. I could keep going on and on. Even though this probably won't happen, I would still love to see the classic Milton DeLugg soundtrack finally get used in the parade again after so many years. But that doesn't mean I don't want to hear the Ray Chu soundtrack. Maybe Macy's could do a mix of both the Milton DeLugg soundtrack and the Ray Chu soundtrack. That would work. The next thing I'm going to talk about is also related to the music. Since 2024, they've been playing instrumental versions of viral TikTok songs for some reason. I think this is dumb. I know they're trying to be trendy, but most of the time when companies try to be trendy, it doesn't work and viewers see it as cringe. So removing the TikTok songs would improve the parade soundtrack a lot more. I mean, changing SpongeBob's background music to Big Guy by Ice Spice was very unnecessary, and it didn't fit his character. I think one of the main reasons for the increase in commercials and longer performances is because since 2022, the parade has always started half an hour early at 8:30 a.m. Before 2022, the parade always used to have a 9 a.m. kickoff. And I think Macy's should go back to having the parade kick off at 9 a.m. I think an 8:30 kickoff is too early, and going back to a 9 o'clock kickoff would give spectators more time to wake up and prepare for the parade. Another reason why the parade has been kicking off half an hour early is so the telecast has more space for more special performances and longer commercials, which are two things that I think Macy's should stop doing to keep the parade moving faster. If the parade were to kick off at 9 a.m. again, not only would it stop Macy's and NBC from increasing the number of commercials and special performances, but it would also keep the parade moving faster so it doesn't keep jamming. Additionally, it would be even worse if the parade kicked off at 8 a.m., because you'd think it would mean the parade itself would be longer, but it would actually lead to even more commercials and even more special performances. So hopefully this year's parade will go back to kicking off at 9 a.m. just like it always used to. Something else that I would suggest is I really hope that Macy's and NBC get back to showing the Macy's original character unit on the telecast. Over the past couple years, Macy's has made so many amazing original character units, like Wigglefoot, the Happy Hippo Stack, the Rainbow and Graybow Trouts, Lox and Java, and Cookie and Crouton, just to name a few. However, for some reason, I've noticed that NBC chooses not to show these amazing original creations that Macy's comes up with. I think Macy's original character units deserve a lot more love, and I think that they should be shown and mentioned on the telecast. Back in the 90s and 2000s, the NBC telecast would always show the original Macy's character units, like the Elf Trio, Charlie Kitten CJ, Artie the Pirate, Harold the Fireman, Happy Hippo, and even Tony the Bandleader Bear from 2021, just to name a few. But these days, almost all of the original character units have been completely ignored by NBC. They used to mention the Nutcracker and Mouse King Tricaloons, but they don't anymore. And they never mentioned Lox and Java either, or Cookie and Crouton, who are paired with Lox and Java. They also never mentioned the Happy Hippo Stack, Rainbow and Graybow Trout, or Wigglefoot. They showed Wigglefoot, but they never talked about Wigglefoot. Now, I mentioned that almost every original Macy's character has been getting ignored in recent years. And the reason why I said almost everyone is because there is one character that was mentioned last year, and I'm talking about Frida the Dachshund. And the reason why she was mentioned was because she was sponsored by a different company, the Farmer's Dog. This basically proves that the only way original characters can be mentioned on the parade telecast is if they're sponsored by a company other than Macy's. So basically, the only way they can mention Lox and Java is if they're sponsored by Starbucks or something. And I think that is very unfair, because not everything has to be sponsored. This basically just shows how out of hand commercials have been in the Macy's parade in recent years. Because nowadays, everything has to be sponsored, and if something isn't sponsored, NBC won't give a crap about it. I think that's just dumb. If they did this back in the 60s and 70s, they would not be showing the Happy Dragon at all. I just find it very unfair that only the well-known licensed characters are allowed to get screen time. Meanwhile, the original characters that Macy's comes up with are completely ignored, and all the attention is being put on the licensed characters. I would suggest that NBC should show every original character unit. Not just Frida, everyone. Because they all deserve the spotlight. Lox and Java have never gotten the spotlight. They deserve the spotlight. Same with Cookie and Crouton, and Wigglefoot, and the Trouts, and the Nutcracker and Mouse King, and even some of the inanimate object balloons, like the candy cane, and the poinsettias, and the snow crystal ornaments. They deserve the spotlight too. I think it would be so much better if all balloons in the Macy's parade were treated equally. Whether they're licensed characters or original characters, everyone deserves the spotlight, and nobody should be ignored. So I really hope that this year, all of the original Macy's characters finally get shown and mentioned on NBC. Something else that NBC hasn't shown in the telecasts in a while is the clowns. In recent years, the clowns have been overlooked, and for that I blame the Killer Clowns of 2016, because they're the ones that gave clowns a bad reputation. They're the ones that have caused Ronald McDonald to be phased out of McDonald's, and they're the ones responsible for all the clown animatronics that Spirit Halloween has been pumping out over the years. People are now more scared of clowns than ever before.
The clowns are nothing but ultimate evil! They want to be the dominant species on the planet, and they'll destroy us all to make it happen! Destroy us all! Destroy us all! Destroy us all!
But it's not supposed to be that way, because in the Macy's parade, the clowns are supposed to be fun characters. They're supposed to add a lot of entertainment to the parade, so it's sad seeing the clowns get overlooked. Back in the 80s and 90s and even the 2000s, the clowns would always get mentioned on the telecast, but sadly these days the clowns don't get any mentions or any screen time, which is sad because the clowns play a big role in the parade too. I mean, clowns have been part of the Macy's parade since the beginning. I really hope that the clowns finally get mentioned this year, because it's sad to see them getting overlooked in the parade. Same with the costume groups in the Toronto Santa Claus parade. Like, they've been part of the parade history for so long, and to see them get overlooked is just so sad and depressing. So I really hope that NBC finally starts mentioning the clowns on the telecast again. This next thing I'm gonna talk about is something that Macy's and NBC aren't doing in their telecasts yet, but I feel like it might happen at some point. I have a weird feeling that Macy's and NBC will start including AI segments. I really hope this doesn't happen, but I feel like it might. With so many companies and corporations hopping on the AI bandwagon in recent years, Macy's might be next. In this day and age, Macy's feels like the type of company to start using AI in their major events. In my mind, I can envision NBC showing AI-generated videos trying to replicate past parades, AI-generated videos talking about the history of the parade, AI-generated commercials, and other forms of AI slop during the telecast. I can also picture Macy's using AI-generated parade posters, firing the NBC scriptwriters in favor of using ChatGPT to write the scripts, and adding AI-generated floats and balloons to the lineup. I really hope Macy's and NBC's don't start using AI, because the inclusion of AI segments would make the coverage so much worse than it already is. AI is making so many lives worse, cutting down job opportunities, and harming the environment. So let's hope that the Macy's parade doesn't get taken over by AI. I think the Macy's parade needs a new announcer for the 2026 parade, because the current announcer, Les Marshak, who's been the announcer since 2011, is getting old. I noticed this when comparing clips of him in the 2025 and 2024 parades to clips of him in the 2011 and 2012 parades. He's obviously getting too old for his job, which is why I think the Macy's parade needs to have a new announcer for this year's parade. Maybe someone who's a lot younger, because the younger a person is, the more energy they have. So I would suggest getting a new announcer that is younger to replace Les Marshak in future parades like the 2026 parade. Or another thing that they could do, if they want to honor a parade legend, is hire a Don Pardo impersonator. Don Pardo was the announcer from 1994 up until 1999, and his voice is so iconic, so I think hiring an impersonator would be a great way of paying tribute to him and honoring his legacy that he left on announcing not just the Macy's parade, but also Saturday Night Live and radio broadcasts. It would be really nice to hear someone pay tribute to a parade legend by recreating his iconic voice. Another announcer-related thing that I would do is I would stop getting the hosts to announce what's coming up in the broadcast instead of the announcer. In Macy's parade telecasts, the hosts are never supposed to announce what's coming up next, because the announcer always does it instead. But lately, I've been noticing that the hosts are trying to steal his job so they can be the ones announcing what's coming up next instead of him. I've also noticed a couple instances in the 2025 broadcast where it just immediately cuts to commercial without him making his announcements of what's coming up next. So for the 2026 parade, I hope the announcer gets to announce everything that's coming up next before every commercial break. Another thing that I would suggest to Macy's and NBC is to keep politics out of the Macy's parade, because in recent years, the Macy's parade has been more political than ever before. Every year since the start of the 2020s, there have always been things in the parade that trigger either left-wing media or right-wing media. I'm always bothered by when people that are so invested in political parties freak out about someone performing in the parade. For example, you always see people that support the Democrats raging online every time a racist celebrity like Kanye West appears at the Macy's parade, and you always see people who support the Republicans raging online about the parade becoming a, quote, non-binary and transgender extravaganza. This is why I hate politics, and I refuse to get involved in any political conversations. Politics don't have to be shoehorned into everything. So why shoehorn it into the Macy's parade like it's not that serious? The Macy's parade's supposed to be a happy, fun event, but these political online users always find a way to complain about anything and everything that is against the laws and rules of the political party that they glaze nonstop. Next thing you know, both sides of the political spectrum are going to start running their own alternative Thanksgiving parades, with everything that they like being the main focus of their parades. We already saw something like this happen earlier this year with the Turning Point USA alternative halftime show that took place during Bad Bunny's halftime show at the Super Bowl.
I just wanna catch my fish, drive my truck, drink my beer.
And I can see this happening again with the Macy's parade if it's considered too woke for conservative audiences. I can also envision a radical left-wing media group doing the same thing if the parade is, quote, too conservative. Please keep politics out of the Macy's parade, because politics don't belong in the Macy's parade. And lastly, I want to bring up something that isn't related to the telecast, but I still think needs to be changed. One of the Macy's parade community's least favorite things about the modern parades is the posters. Lots of people in the community have said that they hate the modern posters, and I agree. They're too bland, corporate, and soulless compared to the bright and colorful posters of the 2000s and 2010s that always used to show all of the new balloons in each poster. Lots of people are tired of everything becoming oversimplified. I mean, look what they did to the Cracker Barrel logo. Things got so bad that even President Donald Trump asked Cracker Barrel to revert their logo back to the old one. I really hope Macy's goes back to the whimsical, colorful posters with all of the new balloons on it, because those posters are so much better than the ones we've been getting for the past 3 years. I really hope Macy's and NBC make all of these changes to the 100th Parade telecast. All of these changes would make the telecast so much better and more enjoying the watch. It would also lead to a more positive reception from viewers. In recent years, it seems like Macy's and NBC have been forgetting the parade's roots. So hopefully this will be the year that they finally remember what the parade started from and all of the traditions that came from this parade and how big of an impact it has made. I really hope they don't screw this up. As always, I'm going to watch the 100th Parade live on NBC. I really hope they finally make the telecast good this year. I have a feeling this will be the year where we finally get a good telecast, because if it ends up being a letdown, I don't think I can watch the live NBC coverage anymore. I'll probably go back to watching the 2010s parades every Thanksgiving morning instead of the recent 2020s parades. What do you think about my thoughts and opinions on the current state of the parade telecasts? Feel free to share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I hope you guys are enjoying this series so far as we count down to the 100th Macy's Parade, which will hopefully be better than the past couple years. See you in the next episode!